Hello, everyone. I'm Rania Khalek, and this is a special live episode of Dispatches. After 2 months of a destructive Israeli war on Lebanon that has killed over 3,700 people and damaged and destroyed tens of thousands of homes, a cessation of hostilities has gone into effect. This as Israel's unrelenting genocide in Gaza continues without end. The Lebanese are breathing a cautious sigh of relief today. Some are celebrating what they see as another Israeli defeat and a resistance victory. Others are wondering whether these sacrifices were worth it. As the dust settles, a war of narratives will escalate. But one thing is for sure: Israel did not achieve its military objectives, and the resistance in this region is far from finished. To discuss the latest developments, I'm joined by Lebanese journalist Ghadi Francis. Ghadi, welcome back to Breakthrough News to Dispatches.
Welcome back yourself to Beirut. You bring the good vibes with you wherever you go, Rania. You brought
Aw.
victory with you this time.
Well, that's one way to look at it. It is good to be back. I am coming to you from Beirut, and it's so good to see you. And I think there's a lot to discuss today, and you're the perfect person to discuss it with. We've had several conversations throughout the last more than year of genocide in Gaza, and then when the war in Lebanon escalated. And Ghadi, I was talking to you yesterday. I was in Hamra in Beirut when the Israelis, we heard the ceasefire announced that was coming, and the Israelis started threatening areas they hadn't hit before. They threatened Hamra. We were kind of waiting for that hit. It was quite a scary moment, but then eventually we reached this point of a cessation of hostilities, a ceasefire. So I guess before we get into some of the details, I'm curious, as somebody who's been watching, commenting, covering, who's from Lebanon, born and raised here, what are your thoughts as this ceasefire takes hold?
It just brings me more and more affirmations and confirmation that we have always been right in trusting our capacity and our potential and our people and our resilience and our resistance and our countrymen and women. It brings me respite to know that the Israelis have been taught a lesson that they cannot have their way wherever they want, even if they had the world with them, even if they were given CPU bunker busters by the United States of America, even if they were protected while committing war crimes, while bombing hospitals, while making up excuses to justify daily bombing of residential buildings in the center of a capital, Beirut, with the mainstream media also justifying and all the drums around like saying yes, finish them all. With all that, they couldn't have their way with Lebanon. It is not the first time in our history, it is not the second time in our history, it's the third time in the history of the Lebanese people where they drive back to their southern villages and they prove their point. And I think regardless of how we want to consider it politically, when you are coming from a people that have done that 3 times already, this is becoming more and more rooted in your collective memory, in your collective identity as Lebanese. So the reason why me, a 1989 born woman in Lebanon, was very sure that this is how it's going to end is because I saw it. I witnessed it with my own eyes in 2006. And when I saw from 2006 till date how much this organization grew, how much their capacities and their know-how in warfare also grew and was tested and experienced in Syria, Iraq, and in the region, and seeing that the first day when the rockets continued to go on and on after the pager attacks, after the assassinations, we knew that this is still the same resistance group that was able to deliver in 2006 and would be able to deliver this time. So in general, I see in the course of history, this is another pin, another nail in the coffin of the Zionist entity and the Zionist project in the region. Some people want faster wins. They want to end it now. This is the drive that keeps peoples and resistance groups going. These people who want to end it now, they are the drive. But in every movement, there's this diplomacy. There are the people who sit down and sign the treaties. There are the people who want to stop and then calculate and then reboot. There are the people of the time and the place today in history, yesterday, but the cause still goes on. It eats up icons and solo humans or personalities into the whole liberation path. And I think Hezbollah as an organization has lost a lot. It is only realistic to consider that. And it's only logical to count your losses to be able to count your wins. Hezbollah has lost a lot, but as a resistance group, it comes from a different line of measurement and criteria. While as the Israeli, and you're talking about F-35s fighting people in after infiltration with the AI systems, and that couldn't stop 560 sirens in 3 hours from blowing off and on in Tel Aviv. 8 weeks after the trials to invade Lebanon, 8 weeks, and 1 year after bombing and striking the targets of all shapes and types in Lebanon. So this is rooted now. We've seen it in our own eyes, and on the long run, I think all this massacre that they have been committing in Gaza and they spilled in Lebanon as well, all this blood will breed in enlightenment, in awareness, in a new round, in a new generation of very aware Lebanese young men and women who will take it on to keep on fighting the Zionist project in the region.
And I appreciate that. I kind of want to go through the different aspects of all the players here and what their objectives were, what their intentions were, and what they came out with. So I guess let's start with the Israelis. Can you lay out, well, I guess we all know, I'll remind you of some of them, but you can add more. I mean, the Israelis escalated in Lebanon in September with those pager attacks, then ultimately with this mass bombardment campaign across Lebanon that led to them assassinating Hassan Nasrallah and much of the senior, and in some cases mid-level military leadership of Hezbollah, and in some cases destroying some of their, weapons. And they never said it wasn't the same as Gaza. Their intentions or objectives that were stated weren't the same as Gaza, but they wanted to weaken Hezbollah, push Hezbollah past the Litani River so that they could bring their settlers back to the north. And they wanted to basically create this massive buffer zone across the Lebanese border, 5 kilometers in. After the last 2 months, can you tell me, based on what Israel's military objectives were, if they managed to meet any of those objectives? And I think that's a good way of kind of segueing into why we probably look at this as a defeat for Israel.
Not only were they incapable of meeting their objectives in terms of the northern areas to make them safer for settlers to come back, they ended up having people displaced from Haifa and other regions, and so it spread out. They even exacerbated the situation. We could always see the Israeli media quoting the mayors and municipalities of all the northern areas. We could go to them and they can tell you how many have been displaced, tens of thousands of their settlements, what they call homes, have been destroyed or attacked, or so in general, this didn't happen. On the other side, when they say Litani River, Litani 5 kilometers, these numbers and shapes, Rania, this is what the reason. This was the norm, or has been what they agreed on after 2006.
Right.
So I don't think anybody. I mean, I would picture the Hezbollah actual fighters that have nothing to do with politics, the people that are in South Lebanon that actually changed they changed the whole plan that Netanyahu had. These crazy, passionate, very well oriented and disciplined fighters. I don't think they really care who says what. And as long as these villages are their villages, nobody can tell them how to be armed or weaponized when the danger is there. But this agreement had to do with rockets or with heavy weaponry, if you go into the details of the 1701. And in general, rockets can still be delivered from northern Litani. I don't think strategically, with the use of the drones and all kinds of rockets that have emerged during this war, I don't think even if they go back to behind the Litani in the military way, that would change the scales or really the stakes in terms of strategic military deterrence that Hezbollah has in southern Lebanon. And one more thing about the kilometers, Rania, you know very well, us as journalists, we know exactly how the war of narratives have been going. And you just said it in your introduction. And here, so the narrative that they want to say is that they went to Litani River. So you, as an American journalist, say they really reached the Litani River. I would like to tell you and your listeners and our viewers right now that they got to Tel Nahas. So they got into, I would want all of you to check the map to see where Tel Nahas is. So basically, they penetrated 1.2 kilometers from the borders after 1 year of bombing these borders, and after actually putting, like, you saw the videos of bombing villages and flattening them. So these areas, after they did that for these areas for around 1.5 years from the air and around 8 weeks on the ground with the tanks and artillery and everything, after that they reached to Tal Nahas. They were able to take footage and to come back horizontally, quote unquote. This is Nasrallah's promise. So they didn't get to Litani River. Okay, you see them, they got to Aita Shab. Why are they bombing and clashing with people in Aita Shab last night if they had got, taken it, occupied it? So it's a narrative. They come, we saw them, they're rushing. There's actually a video, there's an actual video of real-time footage, but with someone narrating that has been circulated on social media during the clashes in southern Lebanon, where the soldiers come, they climb to the roof, they take footage of themselves with the flag, and then they climb down the stairs, and then they get bombed and killed at the entrance of that building. So this footage of that flag, Israeli flag in southern Lebanon, for around 20 seconds. These 20 seconds before they were killed and attacked by Hezbollah, this is exactly what the Israelis could do in Lebanon. They could raise their flag for 20 seconds. As for what the politics would give them, what they couldn't take in war, Rania, will not be given to them in politics. Even if you may see that, and I'm talking to you, and I know you're a comrade. We don't like deals that are made in politics because a lot of blood has been spilled. So I don't want you guys or anyone to think that this politics really would change things on the ground. You know, whatever they say, on whatever they agree, whoever says they're gonna do what, on the day that danger attacks Lebanon, we have seen these people. We have seen exactly what they're capable of doing. And politics will not be allowed to give away what they have fought with their cut fingers and injured eyes, or maybe they lost their eyes. These pager attack targets, these humans, they will not give away with politics and deals what they fought like that for.
So I want to play devil's advocate here because there's a couple different narratives going around, and actually one of them is from the pro-resistance side. There's some people, I just want you to respond to this talking point that I've seen, which were upset that this ceasefire was agreed to, who say it's like a surrender. And there's different reasons people feel that way. I mean, you mentioned this is basically just going back to the status quo of 2006 with a few additional details. And, you know, there's like this monitoring group, which is basically just the US and France, according to the ceasefire agreement, that will be like monitoring whether the Lebanese side abides by essentially what was in 1701 back in 2006, which is to have the Lebanese state and Lebanese army guarantee the dismantling of Hezbollah's weapons infrastructure. And so a lot of people see this new monitoring mechanism as part of what they see as a surrender. So I'm curious if you could speak to that critique that I've seen. I don't agree with it, but I want to get your perspective on that because it does exist. There are some people who are saying this is not something that should have been agreed to. Like, and you know, it's like why would Hezbollah do this?
Let's start from one principle that it's always essential for people to comment on all events in life. let alone wars. It's very essential for the dynamic of thought to really to evaluate, because a lot of it has been happening, and what you consider win may not be considered wins by the other. It's okay for them to talk, but whatever anyone considers that does not change facts. Surrender is when you are disarmed. Surrender is when you have changed your vibe, or what you want, or what your purpose is. Surrender is when you're not in the south, when the Israelis told you, I'm bombing. Surrender is when you change who your credibility is given to. This is, I'm not giving you poetry now. I think yes, there are always these people that are the drive, the actual passion for resistance groups comes from people who do not agree on the whole idea of ceasefire to begin with. They don't even want to normalize the idea that Israel is a thing. It is occupied Palestine. We don't even recognize it as a country in Lebanon. Just FYI for the viewers, in Lebanon, by the book, if you want to act as per the Lebanese law, you're not entitled to share a room or a discussion or a conversation with anyone from that entity, because it is considered the Zionist occupation of Palestine as per the Lebanese law. So you're talking about this society. They're trying to break it into a total different society. Wins and surrenders are not identified by the comments of the people after wars. Surrender will only happen if, God forbid, we normalize, if, God forbid, we give them our land, or they take part of our land, if, God forbid, they disarm the only men in Lebanon that were able to protect it, I mean, without even actually empowering the Lebanese army. So, no, these are not, but this is not surrender. And I think even the people who call it surrender know that it's not surrender. It's
So then I want to,
lowering the bar. It's lowering the bar,
right. And I
you
think that,
know?
okay, so I also want to ask you to respond to something as well, because I think a lot of people are confused because a lot of the rhetoric around this ceasefire deal and what we've been hearing from the Americans and often from the Israelis is they want the Lebanese army to basically take on the role of disarming Hezbollah. That's something they've always said. It's not new. But a lot of people are confused why, when it comes to Lebanon, Hezbollah is the one that's fighting and not the Lebanese army when it comes to the Israelis. And I know that's a very simple and easy question for you, but people outside the country
No,
are
I'm
confused by
really
this. Makes
grateful.
sense.
I'm
Yeah,
really
please
grateful. This is why
explain.
it's important. Yeah. I just want to tell you that most of the people that want the Lebanese army to disarm Hezbollah would want the Lebanese army disarmed if they fight the Zionists. Okay? So they try to tell you that they love the Lebanese army and they want the Lebanese army. They just trying to put oil on fire, or in terms of exacerbating the domestic tension, the sectarian problems, the idea of militia, anti-state, etc. But the essence of the neo-political status quo in Lebanon is جيش شعب مقاومة, people, army, resistance. This has been baptized in Doha after an internal conflict in 2008 in Lebanon. So this is the new status quo, or the new bar under which the governance of Lebanon has been happening. In case anybody wants to change that scale, they will have to maybe reshape it with a lot of tension in the streets. And I want to tell you, Rania, it's neither the army would like to, as much as the Americans tried. I mean, the Americans, as in directly, the American embassy in Beirut, the American ambassador in Beirut, the American administration has always tried to make the Lebanese army a kind of pawn for that in the past few months and years, by giving them some political protection, or by saying that they want to arm the army or whatever. But in general, even that did not succeed in splitting the army from Hezbollah for many reasons. But the basic and the most simple reason is that nobody can take on a fight with Hezbollah inside Lebanon. I mean, the Israelis, backed by the NATO and the US, could not break Hezbollah. Who's going to break them? Samir Jaja?
Sorry, I hope my laugh answers that question.
No, I'm trying to be really very factual here. يعني, you know?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I think that when it comes to Hezbollah, what their enemies often forget is that this is not just some group that exists like completely detached from Lebanon. I mean, we saw the same images today of Lebanese people who've been displaced going back to their villages and their towns the first chance they got. And whose flags were they waving? They were waving Lebanese flags and they were waving Hezbollah flags.
No, and they were not
Um,
wasting their time. They're putting the volume up and they're bringing down the Israeli flags and they're saying in
yes.
very beautiful villager like language that we're gonna issi نحرقه. يعني هلا now we're gonna burn it, take it, we're gonna burn it.
Yeah.
So they're enjoying their time.
Yes. Yes.
This
But
is
that
this is making up and constituting a new collective memory called victory, called survival, called maintaining your land, called defeating the NATO. This is what the people feel like now. They're very sad and frustrated. We have lost many important people and many precious people, and a lot of our city has been targeted. Yes, but believe it or not, you want it or not, these people that were the targets, they feel victorious, regardless of how you see it from your way and place. Even the people of Gaza see in that a victory for themselves. So I think if you're not really from South Lebanon on the ground, I prefer that you wait a little bit before you tell us what you feel, because they are the ones who actually fought first row, you know?
yeah. Yeah. That said, I think it's like we don't want to pretend like there wasn't huge amounts of loss here, right? So there was, like I mentioned in my opening, over 3,700 killed, which is a huge number for Lebanon. I think over 40,000 homes have been destroyed with Israel's U.S.
We don't
armed.
know about the numbers. We don't know about the numbers.
Well, we know there was a lot of destruction and a lot more destruction than 2006, and this is the
Yes,
Israel
no,
we're
but
dealing with today.
yes, but because about the numbers, the number 40,000 was really circulated, and then everybody was. So unless it is really an actual, I'm telling journalists now, I'm like taking the chance. If it's not really an actual classification or statistical coming from a municipality or and like don't just throw it, because I know Ali Tfaili on Twitter, who's an actual specialist in that sense and from South Lebanon. When the number 40,000 started to be circulated, he just drew kind of diagram where he actually put the amount of homes in each and every village in South Lebanon as per the municipalities. And something didn't really add up as the number was being circulated. I'm not saying that it's not big. I'm just saying that in terms of numbers, we have to also take into consideration that there's nothing really official, and there's nothing really factual between like with us. But however, the Israeli media told us about how many tens of thousands of Israeli houses were destroyed as well.
And many were from our side. But that all that said, there's the argument also, and I want to give you an opportunity to respond to this because it's not just an argument we hear a lot here in Lebanon from certain sectors. It's the argument that gets the most airtime in Western media from Lebanese people. And that is that all of this damage and all of this destruction, and for what? Like, what did Hezbollah gain? What were they looking to do here? What was their objective? And this was actually, if you look at all the destruction, a massive failure and gave Israel everything it wanted. And then the other argument you'll hear is, and I mean, people are allowed to have their opinions about this, but the argument is what was the point of Hezbollah getting involved on October 8th? It was just going to lead to this. And I know I could see you. I know your thoughts on this, but because that's the perspective that most Western English speakers are subjected to in Western media. I'm curious how you respond to that. Do you
Not
think
only
Hezbollah?
Western, actually, many people who like Hezbollah are saying these things, who want Hezbollah to win are actually saying these things. It's only
Yeah.
logical to consider that many people consider what happened as a strategic wrong. Many people see that this was a wrong strategic step. Even allies of Hezbollah, political allies, have already voiced that, wrote that, and been tried for that in the domestic Lebanese politics. So it's not unlikely for people to say, what was the use of that? I mean, we have Gibran Basir wrote that in the newspaper, and he was like an ally for Hezbollah. So it's not wrong in general to have this question or to have any question in politics. But what's wrong is to take the Western narrative as a compass in any shape or form, because basically they are the ones in the plane sending the bunker buster. So whatever they're giving airtime on their media to tell me, I must rethink. إذا
That's a good
أتاكم
point.
نبأ من فاسق فتبينوا. You know, I'm quoting the Quran here, though I'm like not Islamist, but it's just a very, very important
Lots
sentence.
of wise words.
إذا
Lots of wise
أتاكم فاسق بنبأ فتبينوا. If a bad person is bringing you news, at least check it. Okay?
Yeah.
So, but in general, I think also I want to make one small analogy, and then I will dive into answering and responding to that point. When you look at some people's lifestyles, if you tell someone you spend 3 hours in the gym every day, they might think that your goals are just a waste of your time, because you could do whatever you're doing in your gym for 1 hour, 3 times a week, and then you could listen to Mozart another hour in the morning. This is what they think gets you to their goal, to their goal. But your goal from going to the gym is different. What I'm trying to say is that the organizations, the entities, the identities, the ideologies, they set their targets for themselves, whether in what they do, how they do it, when they stop it. What was their target? Hezbollah's target. What was it? And did they get to it or not? It's not what I'm giving you the example of a very known ally, not what the ally wanted or saw as a win, because some people see the wins and the losses in terms of economy, and yes, we have lost. Some people see the wins and losses in terms of infrastructure, and yes, we have lost. Some people's scales is a bit different and is a bit strategic and is a bit regional. And in the regional side, we defeated the NATO. We stopped the NATO from eradicating southern towns. They started parading that they wanted to take residential real estate investments in southern Lebanese towns. We saw this. This was what they were parading in the first few weeks of their ground invasion plan on Lebanon. How did they leave today Bawabat Fatima, crawling, crying, devastated, 80% with problems, insomnia? Thousands left Israel indefinitely, hundreds of thousands displaced in occupied Palestine. Look at their army. Look at the problems between their army and their government. Look at the Haraidim and how they didn't fight, and but their far right took the whole Israel to that war. Consider for a moment the Israeli economic losses, the thousands in terms of tourism that they have lost, the millions, the thousands of companies that have been bankrupt. So maybe Hezbollah coming and being bred and helped by the Islamic Republic of Iran, who many seem to say that has played with this and didn't really support. I mean, today Afikhai Adrai was telling us that Iranians are sending weapons to inside Palestine, if you could see. So people from the Gulf regions that are actually fueling the Israelis are judging the Iranian help to the Palestinians. I mean, you stop supporting Israel and then we'll allow you to judge the Iranians. I don't want you to support the Palestinians. Just stop supporting their killing, and then you will have the moral leverage to even give a say. Anyways, so I'd like to say that the Iranians believe in a long war, حرب الاستنزاف. What do you call it in English?
You're asking the wrong person. The long war, they live in strategic patience. Is that the thing we're talking about?
No, it's the long-term war. It's the, so and this kind of, so this is what Khomeini's philosophy started. حرب الاستنزاف. They don't want a full-blown war with that entity. They believe that the way to end that entity, which quote unquote they call the cancer, Okay, they believe that it is only fought and ended through patience and wars at the borders in a different in a system that's sometimes um, it's sometimes really in a high frequency, sometimes in lower frequency. And I think Hezbollah, it's their target is to end Israel. And on the path to end Israel, that's not easy to burn 60 tanks, to destroy planes, warships, to actually further root their defeat and their inability to do anything in southern Lebanon. I think we are um, looking and we are witnessing the catalyzation of the end of Israel. And in their long-term targets, yes, they did become one step closer.
So I want to ask you about the issue of, I mean, this is a bit more difficult to talk about because all we can really do is speculate, right? But over the last year, and this is something that people who are, pro-resistance are even asking is, okay, there was a lot of times where we would hear from Hezbollah leaders that if Israel did this, if Israel crossed a certain red line, they would respond with, like civilian for civilian, right? Or Dahieh for Tel Aviv. Like if they hit Dahieh, we'll hit Tel Aviv. And what we saw over the last year is every time that Hezbollah would, create this red line, if this is a red line for us, Israel would cross it. And this actually goes to the Iranians too, because the Iranians did this as well, is every time a red line was crossed, rather than responding how they said they would respond, they would kind of do a soft response, or in some cases with the Iranians, no response at all. And so the sort of like looking back hindsight here is that perhaps not responding as strongly as promised actually ended up emboldening the Israelis ultimately. And then other people are asking, well, where was all this weaponry? Because Hezbollah did manage to hit Israel a lot over the last couple of months, but it wasn't to the capacity or frequency that we had expected, or that a lot of people had expected, given what Hezbollah said they were capable of doing. So that's a conversation that's happening right now, was that capability maybe there and attacked when there was that massive attack on Hezbollah's senior leadership and they had to regroup and like rearm? Because that's very possible that's what happened. Or was it never there to begin with? And again, this is just pure speculation, but this is a conversation that's happening. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that particular discussion?
I really don't, I don't understand why everyone has a say in everything and why I should listen to everyone's say in everything in general.
Point.
But I will, no, really. I mean, so they are, because your question is not starting with like logic says they are saying. And in general, what they are saying is a part of the whole narrative because they are starting to say in the Western media, and then we're in the same vicious cycle. Let's talk a little bit about.
But it's important to address these things because this is the conversation that's happening. This is what people.
Yeah, this is how I choose to answer about that. I choose to start with the person listening to me by telling them that this narrative has been put in their brain. So I like to start dismantling it like that. I'm not saying we shouldn't ask. We must talk about it every day because it's everywhere on the other side. I just want to say, like, to revisit where we were in the previous point. People who support Israel cannot judge Iran about how they respond. And I think I was saying that with many platforms in the beginning, after Ismail Haniyeh assassination. We were all saying it, we were all repeating it, that Benjamin Netanyahu's best case scenario is that everyone has a fight with Iran. Right? I think I'm trying to be Iran here, not in the defense. I would love for Iran to do all they can to end things right now. Like, I wouldn't mind.
We all would. Yeah, we all wouldn't mind that.
But first of all, it's a state. So non-state actors can fight Israel in a more free way for reasons that they cannot be in the same situations. And it doesn't put into diplomacy and world diplomacy in the same way. And this is their problem with Iran by empowering non-state actors in the region, because they bought the states, They dismantled the actual states that were against them. They took wars on Syria. They invaded Iraq. They took it in differently in Lebanon. So then non-state actors continued to fight Israel. This is why their problem with Iran is helping these non-state actors. And if Iran stops supporting Hamas and Hezbollah today, tomorrow they have a deal. They don't mind. They don't mind. Their problem with Iran is exactly about Israel. It's not about something else. They have been dealing in oil and gas and nuclear technology in different ways throughout their histories. Their problem is the regional alignment. But let me tell you something. I think, yes, had Iran striked harder, maybe they wouldn't be empowered to continue and to assassinate. I do share that idea. But I also think that if we take into consideration how speedy and hungry Netanyahu was to turn it into a fight with Iran, I think it was really tricky for them to be able to control that shark that wants to bite you all the time. Shark is a good word in that sense. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like to control them from exacerbating that issue and like empowering them, but in the same way, in the same time, not to give them any justification to bring in the NATO warships and to bring it on and to make it all about Iran and to forget that this war criminal has massacred more than 40,000 humans in 1 year. So I think when you're looking at, this is only thinking with you, when you're looking about it, I'm a nation, I'm a region, I'm an alliance, I'm an axis. I don't think it's really about how we feel about their performance. It's about maintaining their ground, their plans, their access. I mean, the Iranians are there when the 60% of the world trade is being attacked or threatened in Yemen. The Iranians are there.
Yeah.
When the Iraqi groups are attacking American bases in Iraq or NATO places in Iraq, the Iranians are there. It's not without Iran that these groups are doing that in the larger circumference of the region. I see it like that. Like trying to, but in general, these ideas are very essential to build and to evaluate on the wrongs. If we really do believe, as peoples and cultures and states and non-states and ideologies, if we really do believe in our target in liberation, all of these should be really spoken about, dismantled like you are doing right now, and corrected.
Yeah.
We have to learn from something at some point, you know? It's not like we're always right, Yani.
And I think it's also important to recognize, like, I mean, I struggle with this too a little bit, but I think it's important to recognize that, like, Israel is a really well-armed state. It's the most well-armed. Like, you always mention this, Ghadi. There's like billions and billions of dollars worth of weapons constantly flowing to Israel from the US, from other European states to destroy this region. And it's really hard to go up against that. And the fact that, and I don't want to like say, oh, like Hezbollah is like the most strongest, powerful organization in the world, but they are up against something that has significantly more weaponry. And they did have to deal with a huge setback a couple months ago, and they came out of it quite resiliently. Like, I think we were all quite impressed with how they were able to perform in the
setback.
South.
It was a war to end them.
Yeah, you're right. Setback is not strong
even
enough.
Big. Yeah. Even the word setback is not strong enough, because if you look at even states or armies, I'm talking about groups. I mean, do you remember a few years ago when there was like a 10-minute coup against Erdogan and he ran with like one sock to the airport?
Yeah.
Do you remember? I remember he was on Skype and we had that that joke in the family group, like he had only one sock on because he was in a hurry to leave the home and to leave Istanbul and to leave the country and to leave Ankara.
One sock.
Okay, they didn't have time to wear two socks. You know, northern Lebanon jokes. So that was Turkey, one of the biggest armies in the world, you know, and the system of Turkey. I mean, the Islamic Brotherhood, the Neo-Turkey. Erdogan was about to crumble in 10 minutes, because something happened. So you're talking about an organization, a bunch of Lebanese underground, you know, like outlaws who don't want to sell and deal in politics. They just want to protect their land. And these were able to manufacture all that, to do all that, to change the course of all that, uh, and to actually tell the world that even if you kill our leader, even if you target hundreds of I don't know, like containers for our rockets, our weapons, even if you infiltrate our systems, our homes, our ACs, our phones, our pagers, even if you use the world's $1 billion funded propaganda machine to justify bombing each and every doctor from our society, hospital, bank, anything, even if you do all that, nobody rushed with one sock to go anywhere. They remained there, steadfast, defending their land. This is, I think, this is where everything stops. This is where you stop evaluating, because the human, Rania, the human is the actual element that brings the weapon. The human
Yeah.
brain, the human will, the human idea is the actual place where the whole ideology, the whole it is where it is the you cannot kill that idea. Once that idea was even empowered and rooted more, these new people will deliver new weapons, they will deliver new systems, they will make up new intelligence, um, spyware that will protect them from more similar intelligence infiltrations from the Israelis. And just I'm quoting now Al Akhbar newspaper. Yesterday they had a video about how there was a rocket that they shot at Lebanon. They fired at Lebanon in 2006, and then we took that technology as Lebanese,
Mhm.
and we manufactured something from it to even like switch the effect. So I think in the course of the long-term war to liberation, our people and our organizations and our brains and our engineers will learn from that loss. Will learn to correct these wrongs.
So, okay, another thing that I see people, I know we shouldn't care so much about comments, but I see people
No, no,
saying
no,
this
we should, we
everywhere.
should.
We should. No saying is, and I want to give you a chance to address this, but I also think Hamas also just addressed it. But one of the criticisms was that, okay, so like Hezbollah entered this war October 8th, to basically in solidarity with Gaza against the genocide in Gaza. That we shouldn't also forget that Hezbollah entered knowing that Israel was planning to attack Lebanon, so to try and delay that, which I think they did manage to delay that for quite some time. Um, the point is that the big sticking point was we refuse to decouple from Gaza. So we won't stop firing at the Israelis until they stop their genocide in Gaza. So one thing the Israelis are like kind of taking a victory lap over is the idea that, well, we got them to decouple from Gaza. But actually, before I ask you to respond to that, I want to read this. Hamas released a statement about the ceasefire in Lebanon. And in part of it, they said, the Israeli enemy's acceptance of the agreement with Lebanon without meeting the conditions it had set marks an important step in breaking Netanyahu's illusions of reshaping the Middle East through force and his misguided belief in defeating or disarming resistance forces. So that's coming from Hamas, who Hezbollah was acting in solidarity with, in addition to the people of Gaza. So just for those who are saying, oh my gosh, this is a huge loss because of the decoupling. But if you want to piggyback off of Hamas's statement, or I don't know, maybe you have different thoughts on this, Ghadi, but how do you respond to those people who are saying, oh, this is a loss because you've decoupled from Gaza?
I think this says a lot that the whole point, regardless of the designation, coupling or decoupling, the whole point that the Israelis wanted is to breed problems and divisions between the axes of the resistance. They worked on it. Sunni, Shia, Arabi, Ajami,
So
Parsi,
much.
Majusi. They're still working on it right now. I mean, when they have these, when the Israelis want to play on our social media and harass us, they make up Arabic, Syrian opposition or Saudi fake identities. They don't come in with Zionists. They come in shaped as Arabs, but they're bots. So their bot farms are shaped as Arabs to make problems in the this is their ways. Anyway, so they try to decouple the ideologies, the different ideologies, the different points and places in that region that believe in the same idea that is the axis of the resistance. Um, I think, I'm sure that any ceasefire, if it is maintained and if it stayed because of the power. And that power cannot be decoupled from protecting Palestine. Because in the end, that is the same dragon. Is that if the actual entity and the people included, which are the Gazans, spoke their say, nobody else is entitled to judge the Lebanese resistance or the Lebanese people. This is between us and the Palestinians. How we um, divide our roles in our joint destiny and fight to end the occupation of our land, it's our own business. It's nobody else's business to talk about the relationship between the Palestinians and the Lebanese. I think it's stepping down in the bar. Nasrallah was alive when he was saying, لن نفصل الساحات, we will not decouple. I think with his assassination, with his martyrdom, it is only fair to say that this organization is entitled to at least lower their bar or change their timings. It is not. It is something that is existential that they've been through. Lowering that bar in order to protect something internally or Lebanese or under that junction is not a big deal. In terms of wins or loss, it's not what says if it's a win or loss, not the coupling or decoupling, and not who names it decoupling. I think there's no decoupling, there's no dismantling of the axis that is going to happen. And I think this ceasefire, if maintained, it will it will manifest itself in Yemen, in Iraq, in Gaza, in every single capital, in Syria. And I think this is why everybody's waiting to see what the American administration is going to make out of that. Will it take it one step further, or will it reboot the killing spree? Because at that point, there is like zero trust of any word that comes out of the war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu's mouth.
You know, I think it's really incredible. The Israelis were like, they can't return home yet. And then what did everybody do? I mean, people started driving south yesterday, even before the ceasefire went into effect. It's like people want, and you know, people were also sharing pictures online of people returning to the South in 1978, people returning to the South in 1982, people returning to the South in 2000, people returning to the South in 2006. And now again, 2024, these images aren't necessarily new.
I'd like to see 1% of these Israeli thieves. 1%. I'm putting that bet. I want to see 1% in the coming month. I give them a month.
Yeah, I mean, it's just funny that
I'm gonna put a bet. Please quote me on that. I will put a bet. Even in 2 years, they will not come back. We saw their army, the Golani. Did you hear them, how they were crying and weeping? Did you see their, no, I mean, you see our people when there's a bombing. I'm not like sharing. I don't want to talk about our fighters when their friends are martyred next to them, how they are or what they do. You saw the videos. And I will never unsee, I don't ever want to unsee the Binyamina attack on the Golani's McDonald's dinner. I see you laughing because you know what I mean. I mean, they were under the tables and like that, and one of them was crying. What's wrong? It's only a sound. Nobody died even. So you're an army. I mean, stand up. You're an army. You're a soldier. Stand up. It's like it's like it's embarrassing. This is the army.
In Lebanon, what do people do? In Lebanon, what do average people do?
In Lebanon, we have babies like now, and like, no, this is this is the sound barrier, mom. No, it's not a bomb. Don't worry. And they're like 40. It's not healthy. It's traumatized. No,
it's not. It's horrible.
Yeah,
it's
but horrible. I'm telling you, like, we have that kind because we have been like, our mothers have seen it. So even mothers and grandmothers. So this is why Sayyid Nasrallah, I will quote him in the last few minutes of our talk. He said, "Kill us more. Kill us. Go ahead and kill us, because our people will be more aware. اقتلونا فإن شعبنا سيعي أكثر." Show us your true face. Show us your colonizer face. Show the world your war criminal face, because now everybody knows what our problem with you is.
And that's absolutely true. There's people I've seen who like weren't even political before this, and even if they don't love Hezbollah, they definitely hate Israel now. And
Yeah,
like
of
this was
course.
a reminder of who the enemy
So
is.
the point here is not about Hezbollah or our emotions about Hezbollah. Because our emotions about Hezbollah alter when Hezbollah stances change. Before Hezbollah was fighting the Israelis like that, people had different sentiments about them. When Hezbollah was in the with Subhi Tfaili, like I'm talking like ages ago, and they had different political ways. We weren't like pro them, the seculars. We're not with them. Okay, so in general, it's not about Hezbollah.
Hmm.
It's about fighting war criminals. It's about undoing Israelis. It's about undoing the occupation. It's about undoing the theft and the apartheid, ethno supremacist, rogue regime that is harassing us day in, day out. This is our problem. Hezbollah is a reaction. The day that justice is prevailing in the region, nobody would talk about Hezbollah. So it's not about, I don't want you to love Hezbollah as long as you really work actively on fighting Israel. And if you really actively want to fight Israeli crime in the region, I can't see any logic where you would try to make Hezbollah weaker. Let me say, look at them as an ally. If you hate Israel so much, at least don't fight who fights them.
That's well said. There's a few more points I want to get to here before we wrap. And one thing I want to ask you about is, the rest of the world. I've been on this like I've been on this very dark, like it just feels so dark. All year it's felt dark, but especially once it hit Lebanon, because that's where I live, that's where I'm from, it felt even darker. We have such a cowardly world. Like Hezbollah, Lebanon sacrifices, and it sacrificed because we're materially affected by what's happening in Palestine, obviously. And so other people around the region do sacrifice. The Yemenis sacrifice. Some of the Iraqis sacrifice. But so much of the world just refuses to lift a finger. And I'm just curious, like, what your thoughts on that are, because I'm pretty angry at the entire world right now.
Well, I have been angry at the entire world for a long time. I have been involved in Palestine and angry about how they have forgotten us since before I remember being a journalist.
Mm.
We come from homes that chant poetry, that know songs, that cultivates like and culture is all around remembering our towns and our land and our rights in Palestine. So for me, the Palestinian cause and the theft of Palestine has always been, it's a mine of anger in my soul, just like my mother and her mother and your mother and her mother. So to us, we've always been that angry, but it wasn't that blunt, Rania. Our problem, me and you, is not with them doing this. We've always known that they want. It's just at least they had a little bit of regard to how they looked while doing it. To have it televised, to have it defended, to be out there justifying it, and then taking me back to you started it. Okay, I started it. Does that justify killing 40,000 people? Does
Mm.
that justify killing doctors? What are you trying to tell me? You're out there. Your racism is just out there. Your dehumanization is just out there. So this is what's making us renew our anger. And I think because we believe in ourselves and our cause, the only good thing to do about this is to make a plan. The anger, being a victim of something, it can only be made right by actually plotting your success. Your revenge is your success. So they have been able to dehumanize us, to be that unapologetic about our genocide. It's time we take control and we start being the cancel culture. It's time we take on shaming them. I'm very serious, wallah. It's time we start making them feel horrible, making them feel criminals, making them feel like they have to be cancelled and fought in criminal courts, and do it and follow it over every court in every country, wherever they are, just like they did to this Karen, this old lady Karen, that was hitting a lady just because she had a Palestine flag in the United States of America. And I think
So
she got
nuts.
tried. She got tried because because they followed it up. And I think it's time for everyone who's pro-Palestine, who's pro-life, who's pro-Lebanon, who's anti-racism, who's anti-dehumanization, who's anti-genocide. I think it's time for us to take control, and we should start the cancel culture. Let's cancel genocidal people. Let's cancel racists. Let's cancel narratives that are dehumanizing to us. Let's call them what they are. I mean, when BBC says we are young women, when our children, when our 6-year-old Hind Rajab is killed, she's a young lady, young woman. But when a 17 or 20-year-old Golani war criminal, genocidal soldier is traumatized by our drone, they cover it. And they tell us 20 years, and they tell us what his puppy's name was in their media. It's time to call it out.
Yeah.
No? So I think the last message I would like to say now, and we really should be going, it's time for us to start harassing those who kill children.
That sounds fair. That sounds like a fair thing to do, at the very least. Ghadi, one last thing I want to ask you about here, and then I'll let you go. And I really appreciate
1
your time.
hour.
I know. No, one last thing I want to ask you here, as just because it just happened, and I would be remiss not to. Trump is now going to be president of the U.S. Do you have any thoughts on that as we get closer to the end of this Biden administration that has overseen the destruction of so many of our people over the last year?
I can tell you that it's the most honest times in the it's like, at least now he will say it and just leave. And this personality, ever since the first round when he won the presidency in the American elections, the first round, I was like, people were like, this man is all about economy and he will stop wars and it's good and he will like boost the economy inside. And all I could think about was like, what does this tell us about the American people? And I mean, how can you choose this hilarious personality as your president? How iconic is it? And then we saw him tried and tested and then canceled, and like even Twitter, even like he was off Twitter the whole.
That's right.
And then all these things, these very phenomenal kind of events happened to him, and then he resurrected from the death, and then that tells you how failing the Democrats were. I mean, Americans preferred Donald Trump another round.
And so that's how bad the situation is. So, wow.
I want to tell you something. I think to put an end to all that has been discussed today, our people, the indigenous people of this land, they are fighting the strongest empire in the history of the world. They are not fighting Israel. Israel is the baby, is the spoiled, small miniature about that represents the empire. Okay? Because if it weren't for the empire, we saw them. They cry under the table. Okay. I'm speaking facts.
That's perfect.
Facts. And they like to I don't know their problem with lingerie. I don't know why they like to wear women's lingerie.
It's so creepy.
It's so disgusting. I don't understand. Or play with children's toys. I mean, these are their wins anyway. So now we are fighting the empire.
Yeah.
The whole empire. Okay. And I think these things that are happening, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, they are showing us that the way the empire used to govern is going to change, because it's not that serious anymore. First of all, they can't take one town in South Lebanon after they used to take kilometers in days. And then you could see that the empire is ruled today by Donald Trump. I don't need to add anything to that.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Ghadi, I want to remind everybody to follow you everywhere. You're online, you're on Instagram, you're on Twitter. There's a lot of you on YouTube. I appreciate your work so much. I miss you so much. It's
I
been
miss you
too
too.
long. It's
Thank
been
you for
too
giving
long.
us the time to dismantle the whole narrative in
Yes.
English, always with your pushing and being the devil's advocate. It's very important. I'm very grateful for that discussion, Habibti.
Well, I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much for joining me.
Bye.
And